It was the kind of house neighbors talked about in hushed tones. A large white home sat at the edge of the quiet suburb, its tall windows catching the early morning light. But behind those windows, there was chaos. Every nanny who had walked through that door had walked back out within days, some in tears, others swearing they'd never return. Daniel Hart's twin boys, just 6 years old, had been called impossible by every childcare agency in the area. Daniel wasn't a wealthy businessman. He was a hard-working single father, an engineer who put in long hours just to keep things together. He didn't have a fortune, but he had two boys who needed more than he sometimes felt he could give. The twins had lost their mother when they were barely toddlers, and with every new nanny who came through the door, they tested limits, pushed boundaries, and made sure nobody could take her place. That morning, another nanny stormed out, muttering that she'd had enough. Daniel stood in the hallway, exhausted, wondering how two small boys could stir up a storm no adult could calm. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of understanding even the most broken hearts, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to USA Enlightened Stories for more inspiring stories about compassion changing lives. That same afternoon, a woman named Grace arrived at the front gate. She wasn't a trained nanny. She was a maid applying for a housekeeping position. Her clothes were plain, her eyes carried quiet tiredness, and her hands showed the strength of someone who'd worked hard her whole life. The agency sent her because, honestly, no one else wanted the job. Walking into the house, Grace noticed more than the modest but tidy furnishings. She noticed the silence, unnatural for a home with two young boys. Daniel, still in his work clothes, explained briskly that her job was to clean, not to get involved. But Grace's eyes drifted to the staircase, where two small faces peeked out, watching her with suspicion. From the very first day, the twins tested her. They knocked over lamps, spilled juice across the floor she just mopped, and hid her cleaning supplies. Most people would have scolded them. Grace didn't. She recognized the mischief for what it really was, a cry for attention, a test to see if she, too, would leave like everyone before her. That night, she overheard them whispering to each other, small, uncertain voices asking if she'd be gone by morning. Something in her shifted. She decided she wouldn't just clean this house. She'd try to reach the hearts hiding behind all that defiance. Days turned into weeks. Grace didn't answer the boys' mischief with anger. She answered it with patience. She learned that the older twin, Noah, acted tough but secretly kept his mother's old scarf tucked under his pillow. The younger twin, Caleb, caused trouble to hide the fact that he couldn't fall asleep without a lullaby. Quietly, Grace began doing things no one had taken the time to do. She left small notes in their lunchboxes, simple things like, "You're stronger than you think," or "Your mom will be proud of you." She cooked the meals the boys loved, even when it meant more work for her. She turned chores into little games so the boys could feel included instead of invisible. Daniel started noticing changes he couldn't quite explain. The boys, who used to slam doors and skip dinner, now came to the table the moment Grace called them. Laughter, rare and short-lived before, now echoed through the halls. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel cold and empty. It felt like a home. Still, Daniel didn't fully understand how Grace was managing what no professional nanny could. One evening, coming home early from work, he stopped frozen in the doorway. The boys were curled up asleep on the bed, one on each side of Grace, who had dozed off herself mid-story. The scene was so peaceful, so full of quiet love, that Daniel felt an ache in his chest he hadn't let himself feel since losing his wife. The progress wasn't always easy. There were setbacks, days the boys withdrew into silence, or moments when grief surfaced in sudden outbursts. But Grace never walked away. She taught them to plant flowers in a small backyard garden, telling them that just like flowers, broken hearts need care and patience to grow again. Slowly, the boys began to trust, not just her, but themselves. Months passed. One rainy evening, Daniel overheard something that brought tears to his eyes. The twins were in their room, talking before bed. Noah whispered, "Do you think Grace will leave?" And Caleb answered softly, "No, she's different."